Have you ever heard of a behavior-based interview? Maybe you were asked a question in an interview that you just didn't understand how to answer, or maybe didn't understand the question. Maybe these types of questions haven't come up, but you should definitely get to know them to ensure you aren't caught off guard in an interview that can make or break whether you get the next position that you've been applying for. My name's Brent. I own the Vancouver Express Employment Professionals office, and we see ourselves as HR doctors. In our previous video, we discussed the 10 key steps to consider in your job search. We further discussed determining what you want, researching positions, creating your resume, sending out applications, and now preparing for the interviews. In our office, we typically utilize behavior-based interview questions in our second interview and use them to help assess fit and determine whether or not we're going to move forward with a particular candidate. At the end of our first interview, we schedule the second interview and share our core values, which is where HR doctors came from. Our core values are helpful, resourceful, driven, relentless, and sensible. Using these values, we ask behavioral questions looking for the STAR model: situation, task, action, and result. We then create a rating model based on exceeding, meeting, or being below the requirements. To start our behavior-based interview process, I typically ask a candidate if they've ever heard of a behavior-based interview and elaborate on what they should expect. A behavior-based interview question is about coming up with a specific scenario or instance that the job seeker can think of that pertains to the topic or question that's being provided. The goal is for the applicant to recall a scenario that comes to mind and share how or why it's relevant. Now, I'm very open in my approach, but some interviewers may not be. Hopefully this will help you identify these questions if they come up. In my first interview, my question is about our first core value. It's that we're helpful. We're a team that's motivated to be helpful and selfless while working with integrity and upholding the highest ethical standards in all that we do. With that context, my question then is about a time where you had to be helpful or selfless. I further share that my ask is for you to provide a scenario in as recent memory as possible. If the most recent event that you're able to share is only 3 or 4 years ago, then you may not be perceived as exceeding the requirement and might not be a fit for the position. I often share an example of somebody struggling to come up with a scenario of a person who's driving and sees an elderly person needing assistance across the street. If that person pulls their car over, puts their hazards on, and helps that person cross, they're doing something helpful and selfless without being provoked. This is very different than helping a customer find something in a store, especially if you've been asked to do it. Both may fit helpful and selfless, but clearly one scenario is a bit of a better fit. Following this, I'd ask a few questions about why they did what they did, why they made the decisions that they made, and what the end result was, remembering the STAR: situation, task, action, and result. Our next question in core value is resourceful. Again, I give context that we're a resourceful and proactive team in solving problems, striving to maintain transparency and an open line of communications on all levels. My question would be to share a scenario or a situation where you needed to be resourceful to solve a problem. An important point for you to remember is that you can provide any example that you feel best represents the situation. It can be personal, school, or work related. It's also critical for you to ensure the scenario that you're sharing fits the requirements. As these questions are maybe a little different, it's common for people to make statements like, "I'm always resourceful," or "I had to be resourceful all the time in my last position." The interviewer should try to give you direction and help you pick a specific situation and reject ones that don't fit. You should pick a specific situation. Take your time and think for a few seconds to ensure you pick a good recent example. It's also okay to pass on a question and ask to come back to it later. These questions are challenging and often unexpected. Understanding these questions and truly responding with scenarios that tie to the business will stand out as aligned to the position and to the business. Our next question is about drive. The context for this value is that we're driven and competitive in our approach to reaching our goals, always remaining focused on personal and professional growth. Well, you guessed it, the question in this scenario would be about a time where you were driven. I typically look to understand a personal goal if possible in this scenario. Examples of wanting to buy a new car or achieving a fitness goal are excellent. Again, any situation that can provide context into what the goal was, why you set it, how you went about accomplishing it, and what setbacks you faced along the way will always help you achieve that exceed expectation. The last question we ask about in our office is relentless. The context is at our office we're relentless in our quest for success. Failure is not an option for us. I share that we're constantly innovating and we only fail when we accept failure. Anything else is just a lesson. The question for relentless is about a time where you experienced defeat or an obstacle when pursuing a goal and how you were relentless in pursuing it. Again, applying the STAR method, try to provide a situation as recent as possible, the task that you are responsible for, the action that you had to take, and the result that you achieved as a result. Closing things off, I share our final core value is sensible. We seek to find a sensible solution by remaining objective as we analyze all options, always keeping the big picture in mind. To me, this ties all of our core values together and shares how each on their own aren't nearly as strong as the collective. Not every company will do this, and not every company's questions will be about their core values. Our applicants get a deep understanding of how we hold each other accountable and what they can expect from us and who we are as a business. At the same time, using the answers you provide, we're able to assess fit using the rating model based on your exceeding, meeting, or being below the requirements per the questions. You might not have been specifically asked these types of interview questions before, but if you understand them, you can use this approach to better answer any interview questions that you get asked going forward. You should definitely do some research, as there are countless resources available on Google and YouTube. Just like riding a bike, it can be awkward and uncomfortable at first, but it gets easy very quickly. You'll also ensure that if these questions do come up, you'll be prepared to try to rank in the meet or exceed quadrants. We'll dig into our interview process further in some of our upcoming videos, but remember, every minute that you spend on your search, specifically on the areas that you can control, will always be time well spent. Thanks again for tuning in. If you'd like more information on Express, please visit our website, our Facebook, or our LinkedIn pages, which are all linked below, and feel free to reach out with a call, email, or text and ask us any questions you have about your next search for a position.